The janitor who defeated a fighter and hid a painful secret. She was just the janitor at a small-town dojo in Ohio, quiet, invisible, barely noticed. But when Claire Morgan dropped a cocky student to the mat with a move no one saw coming, everything changed. What the dojo didn't know was that Claire wasn't here to clean floors. She was here to bury a ghost. 13 years ago, her brother Daniel died out after a controversial match. The official story claimed it was a tragic accident. But Claire knew better, and now, the man who stood on the other side of that match, the once revered champion Marcus Vance, is about to face the consequences of a past he thought was buried. What begins as a silent confrontation in a dojo quickly spirals into a battle for truth, legacy, and redemption. Claire didn't come for revenge. She came to uncover what was stolen, her brother's name, her own voice, and a truth the martial arts world was too afraid to face. This isn't a story about violence. It's about justice, and one woman's quiet war to set things right. Iron Vale Dojo wasn't exactly famous, but in a small town like Fairwater, Ohio, it was where local kids dreamed of becoming something more. Football players trained here in the off-season. Teenagers learned discipline here. And most days, the only person who showed up before sunrise and left after dark was a woman no one really talked about, Claire Morgan, the janitor. Claire was quiet, always wore a ball cap pulled low over her eyes and headphones as she mopped the hardwood floors or cleaned the locker rooms. She never made eye contact, never stayed long after work, just in and out, like she was invisible. That is, until Travis Beck made the mistake of underestimating her. Travis was 22, the kind of guy who walked like he owned the place. Former high school wrestling champ, tall, strong, cocky, and the unofficial alpha among the dojo's senior students. He hated losing, especially in front of an audience. He liked to show off, and Claire? Well, she was a perfect target for his need to feel superior. "You missed a spot," Travis called out one evening as Claire finished mopping around the mat. His voice was just loud enough to draw a few chuckles from the others. Claire didn't respond. She paused, adjusted her headphones, and moved to the next section. "Hey," he pressed, now walking onto the mat. "I'm talking to you." This time she looked up, calm eyes, a steady breath. She pulled out one earbud and simply said, "It's clean." Travis smirked. "Maybe, but you ever actually train here? Or you just clean up after people who can?" More laughter. He stepped closer, too close, and pretended to lunge as if to scare her. In one fluid motion, Claire shifted her weight, sidestepped him with a precision that didn't belong to someone who only cleaned floors, and gently nudged his arm, sending Travis off balance. He stumbled, not hard, not enough to hurt, but enough to lose his pride. That's when the room went silent. Travis's face turned red. "Want to try that again?" he growled, now moving with real intent. Claire didn't speak, she didn't run. She just stepped back, hands lowered, breathing even. He threw a quick jab, testing her. She dodged, he kicked. She pivoted. 3 more strikes, all missed. Travis was now sweating and frustrated. He came at her again, faster this time, and then suddenly he was on the ground. Nobody could tell exactly how it happened. It was too smooth, too fast. One moment Claire was standing, the next, Travis was flat on his back, blinking up at the ceiling in disbelief. The other students stared in stunned silence. Claire picked up her mop, adjusted her hat, and without a word walked out. That night, word spread like wildfire. The janitor took Travis down. People joked at first, but the ones who saw it, they weren't laughing. They knew what they saw wasn't luck. It was skill, discipline, control, and something else, something colder. Claire Morgan had just broken her cover, and far away in another part of town, a man named Marcus Vance, former world champion dojo founder and mentor to Travis, heard the story. He narrowed his eyes. "Claire Morgan?" he repeated to himself. He hadn't heard that name in years, but he remembered what happened to her brother, and if Claire was really here in Fairwater, then the past wasn't done with them yet. Chapter 2, Buried Names. Marcus Vance stood by the window of his private training studio, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. The evening sun stretched long shadows across the matted floor. In front of him lay a dusty envelope, old photos, articles, and something he hadn't looked at in over a decade. Daniel Morgan. That name used to mean something. Former Marine national martial arts finalist, Claire's younger brother, and Marcus's opponent in the exhibition match that no one wanted to talk about anymore. The night Daniel collapsed in the ring had been deemed an accident. Official statements claimed he had a pre-existing condition. The footage was sealed. No charges. No consequences. But Marcus remembered that night too clearly. He remembered how Daniel had moved, sharp, unrelenting, trained like a machine, and he remembered what he did to stop him. He'd always told himself it was within the rules, but deep down, he knew the truth. Daniel had trusted him to fight fair, and Marcus had broken that trust. In a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, Claire sat on the floor, cross-legged, sorting through a locked case she hadn't opened in years. Inside, a folded American flag, a silver dog tag with D. Morgan etched into it, a yellowed medical report, a thumb drive, and a notebook filled with details she'd collected, witness names, backroom connections, even old tournament footage that never aired. Claire wasn't just a grieving sister. She was once a tactical training officer in Virginia's Special Defense Division, recruited straight out of the Army for her speed, discipline, and psychological control. She had resigned the year after Daniel died. On paper, she'd simply burned out. But in truth, she had begun a long, quiet investigation, one that led her here, to Fairwater, to Marcus Vance's dojo. The same place her brother once dreamed of training under, the same man who shattered that dream. She had waited years for the right time, the right place, and the right moment to expose everything. Travis Beck's arrogance had triggered it. Her instinctive takedown of him in front of the students had drawn the attention she'd spent years avoiding. Now Marcus knew she was here, and that was exactly what she wanted. Across town, Marcus made a call. "Yeah, I need you to dig into someone. Name's Claire Morgan. Works at my Fairwater facility. I need everything. Past military, federal ties, sealed records if you can." Quietly, he hung up and leaned back, exhaling hard. "She's here for a reason." Meanwhile, back at the dojo, students whispered, "Did you see her move?" That wasn't luck. Travis looked like a rookie. Think she was a cop or something? Only one instructor, Sarah Lim, a senior black belt and ex-national competitor, dared to approach Claire in the break room later that week. "I've seen footwork like that before," Sarah said quietly. "Military?" Claire looked up slowly, expression unreadable. "Used to be," she said. "Long time ago. You looking for something here?" Claire wiped her hands on a towel and gave a faint smile. Closure. Later that night, Claire stood in the darkened dojo after hours, alone. She walked the mat barefoot, eyes closed, hands moving slowly through a form. Not for show, not for power, but memory. Every step mirrored a moment. Every turn recalled her brother's training. His voice, his laughter, his promise to beat Marcus Vance clean. She had failed to protect him, but she could still protect his truth. And if Marcus wanted to face her, truly face her, she'd be ready, not for revenge, for justice. Marcus Vance never liked being surprised, especially not in his own house. And Fairwater Dojo, his house, had just been cracked open by a woman pushing a mop. He couldn't sleep, not after seeing the surveillance footage. He'd watched it a dozen times that night. Claire Morgan moving like a phantom, avoiding Travis's clumsy strikes with the calm of someone who knew how to dismantle violence before it arrived. Marcus sat in his private office at 3 a.m., lights off, the screen glowing. "She's not just a former soldier," he muttered to himself. "She's trained for this." But why now? Why here? Then he remembered the name on her emergency contact form when he'd hired her under contract labor 2 months ago. D. Morgan, listed as deceased. Everything clicked. She wasn't here by coincidence. She was circling. The next morning, a printed notice appeared on the dojo bulletin board. Instructor exhibition match Saturday, 5 p.m., special guest Marcus Vance, featuring Travis Beck open floor challenge to any student or staff. The place buzzed. Marcus hadn't stepped on the mat in almost 5 years. Everyone knew his history. Former world champ, national coach, founder of the entire Iron Veil system. His decision to return for an open floor challenge meant one thing. He was calling someone out. And Claire knew exactly who. Claire saw the notice, read it once, then again, then walked away. She said nothing to anyone all week, showed up early, cleaned the mats, left late, silent as ever. But she began training again, alone, after hours, every night. Sarah Lim caught her once, mid-motion, executing a lock sequence that wasn't taught at Iron Veil or anywhere else locally. "You planning to step on the mat this Saturday?" Sarah asked cautiously. Claire paused. "Depends." On what? Claire turned slowly, eyes shadowed under her cap. Whether he wants to fight or confess. Saturday arrived. The dojo was packed. Not just students, parents, alumni, even a few local reporters curious about Marcus's surprise return. At 5 p.m. sharp, Marcus Vance stepped onto the mat. Black GE. No logos, barefoot, focused. He held a microphone, but didn't speak right away. His eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on Claire, standing at the back in her janitor uniform, arms crossed. I started this dojo with one rule, Marcus said. We honor the mat, not just with strength, but with truth. He turned to Travis. You lost to someone who didn't even speak. You were angry about it, I understand, but what you didn't ask was, why did she win? The room was silent. Then he looked directly at Claire. Claire Morgan, I'm asking you to step forward, not as a janitor, as a fighter, as a witness, and as someone with something to say. Claire didn't move at first. She stared at him, as if waiting to see if this was real, or another performance. But when no one else spoke, she stepped forward. The entire crowd shifted, whispers rising like a tide. She didn't change into a gi, didn't bow. She simply stood on the mat, across from Marcus, and said evenly, Do you want to fight, or do you want the truth? Marcus took a breath. I want both. No timer, no referee, just silence. Marcus moved first, slow, deliberate, testing. Claire stayed grounded, unmoving. He feinted left, tested her right flank. She didn't flinch. Then, with a sharp step, he went in for a real throw and was redirected mid-motion. Claire didn't counter. She didn't hurt him. She guided his weight, used his momentum, and placed him off balance, softly but completely. It was the same technique she'd used on Travis. Only this time she added something. A voice. You took him from me, she said, not loudly, but clearly enough for those close to hear. Marcus froze on one knee. You didn't kill him, she continued. But you let the system bury what you did, and I lived with that silence. I became it. Marcus slowly stood up, eyes fixed on her. I've watched that footage 100 times, he said, and I've replayed what I could have done differently. Not the match, the aftermath. Claire's jaw tightened. You walked away, she said. I did, Marcus admitted, because I was scared of losing everything. Claire stepped back, and then for the first time she bowed, not to submit, to finish something. The match was over, but the real confrontation was just beginning. By Monday morning, the story had spread far beyond Fairwater. Janitor outsmarts ex-champion in surprise match, read the online headlines. Locals shared grainy clips from phones, podcasts speculated. Former students of Marcus Vance started emailing the dojo. But Claire didn't respond to any of it. Instead, she met Marcus in his office, not as an employee, not as a fighter, but as a sister who had buried too much for too long. The door shut behind her with a soft click. Marcus stood behind his desk, arms folded, the tension in his shoulders betraying his calm expression. Claire set a small metal flash drive on his desk. I didn't come here for revenge, she said, but I came with the truth, and now you need to see it. Marcus stared at the device. What's on it? He asked. Claire exhaled slowly. Footage that was never released. Interviews from medical staff, tournament communications, and a copy of the liability waiver Daniel signed, or didn't sign. Marcus frowned. He didn't sign it? Claire shook her head. The original was replaced. I found inconsistencies in the timestamp metadata. A whistleblower from the league confirmed it last year. The waiver that excused any injuries wasn't from my brother's hand. Marcus sat down. The weight of her words landed like a slow fall. Someone forged it, she continued, so they could call it an accident and bury the investigation. You weren't the only one protecting a reputation. Marcus's jaw clenched. And you've had this for how long? Years, Claire said, but no one cared, not until now. Not until you made the mistake of calling me out in front of cameras. That evening, Marcus called an emergency meeting with the Iron Vale Board of Directors. They met in a closed room at the regional headquarters. A clean glass conference space filled with silent tension. Claire sat at the end of the table, dressed not in gym clothes or janitor gear, but a crisp black jacket and collared shirt. Every eye in the room followed her, uncertain whether to treat her as threat, guest, or both. Marcus opened the meeting with a brief introduction, one that acknowledged his history with Claire and with her brother. And then Claire plugged in the flash drive. On the screen, footage from the match 13 years ago, shown from an angle the public never saw. Slow-motion replays of a strike to the head delivered after the break call, a move that violated the match's safety protocols. A tournament judge's email voicing concern that was quietly dismissed. A statement from a medical technician explaining signs of trauma inconsistent with an accidental fall. Claire didn't yell. She didn't cry. She let the silence speak for her. And when the footage ended, the room was frozen. One board member finally whispered, "Why didn't anyone look into this before?" Marcus was the one who answered, "Because we didn't want to. We all had something to lose." He looked directly at Claire, and she's the only one who had something worth fighting for. The next morning, Marcus posted an open letter on the Iron Vale website. Open quote, "In 2011, I took part in a match that ended in tragedy. At the time, I accepted the official report and moved on, without asking the questions I should have asked. Claire Morgan brought me the truth I ignored. This letter serves as my formal acknowledgement that mistakes were made, not just by the organization, but by me personally. Daniel Morgan's story deserves to be heard, and Claire deserves to stop carrying it alone." Within an hour, the post went viral. Former students spoke out. Sports commentators picked it up. A major martial arts federation announced it would reopen the case as a matter of transparency. Claire didn't do interviews. She didn't tweet. She simply walked to the edge of town that evening, found a small park bench where she and Daniel used to train together as kids when they lived in Columbus, and sat quietly, watching the sun drop below the horizon. For the first time in 13 years, she felt like her hands could stop clenching, not because justice was done, but because the silence was finally over. Close quote. 2 months had passed since the open letter. The news had cooled, the headlines faded, and the online debates moved on. But in Fairwater, Ohio, the dojo had changed. Not in name, but in spirit. Iron Vale no longer whispered about the janitor who humbled Travis Beck. They spoke plainly now about Claire Morgan, the woman who challenged a legacy and demanded accountability without raising her voice. And now, for the first time, her name was on the official instructor board. Claire Morgan, technical instructor, advanced movement and defense. It wasn't a title she sought. It was one Marcus Vance asked her to accept, not as a favor, but as a step forward. Saturday morning, Claire stood at the center of the mat, this time not in shadows, not in coveralls, but in a black training top and a white belt she'd chosen to wear on purpose. She wasn't here to show rank. She was here to rebuild. Around her stood 12 students, teens, young adults, even one single mom in her 40s. "I'm not going to teach you how to win a fight," Claire said. "I'm here to teach you how to not need one." She let the words settle. Movement is memory. It's your body learning how to speak before your mouth does. It's defense, yes, but more than that, it's clarity, and it saved my life. Some of the students didn't fully understand what she meant yet. That was okay. They would. She walked slowly across the floor, watching as the students practiced footwork. When one stumbled, she didn't correct them loudly. She showed them quietly, guiding, not pushing. And when the youngest girl in the class hesitated, Claire knelt and whispered, "You don't need to be strong yet. You just need to keep showing up." Across the mat, Marcus watched from the sidelines. He still taught advanced classes, but mostly he stayed in the background now. His role had shifted, not just in title, but in presence. There was humility in his silence. Later that afternoon, he approached Claire by the vending machine. "I saw you teaching today," he said. "You've got a way of letting people believe in themselves before they even notice it." Claire sipped her coffee. "I learned from someone who used to do that for me." Marcus nodded. "Daniel?" She gave the faintest smile. "Yeah." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry it took me this long," Marcus finally said. "To see you. To listen." Claire turned to face him, but there was no anger in her eyes. Just clarity. "You listened now. That's enough." That evening, Claire drove out to the quiet spot near the river, a stretch of grass where she and Daniel once practiced when they were kids. The same stretch where he first learned to break his falls, where she first learned to help him back up. She brought a small folding chair, sat down, and took out a notebook. Inside were letters she'd written over the years, to Daniel, to herself, to a future that always felt unreachable. One by one, she tore out each page, folded them gently, placed them into a small tin box, and buried it beneath the soil, not as an act of forgetting, but as an act of letting go. 3 days later, Claire opened the dojo early. Alone, quiet. She rolled out the mats, checked the lights, prepped the gear, and then she stood in the center, barefoot, eyes closed, breathing in the stillness. No crowd, no spotlight. No opponent, just memory, motion, peace. She bowed to the floor, her fingers touching the mat gently, and smiled.